This is Opening Bid on Yahoo Finance. I'm Julie Hyman. I'm filling in for Brian Sazi once again. And I'm glad that we have the guests that we have today, particularly in this sort of political week, if you will, but also a week, of course, that we continue to be focused on the U.S. economy and some of the fundamentals in the labor market and elsewhere that we've been watching closely. My guest today is Bob Clark. He is executive chairman of the board of Clayco. He's also founder of that company, Clayco, a giant construction and development company that operates all over the country, doing all kinds of interesting projects. Bob, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Julie. Good to see you.
So I'm actually going to start not with your day job as executive chairman of Clayco, but something else you're very interested in, which is politics. And you are a supporter of Kamala Harris as presidential candidate. We're coming here on a week in which there was a presidential debate, the first and perhaps only presidential debate. And I'm curious whether you think that Harris did a good job of convincing perhaps undecided voters that not only that they should vote for her, but that they should vote at all, that motivated them enough to get out on in November and vote for her.
Well, I definitely think she did well. I think she definitely, just from the handful of people that I've talked to, I think she definitely had a optimistic tone, this whole turning the page, getting away from the old and angry and getting to a newer, younger generation. I mean, if we're going to tap into the independents and especially the young people, that's what it's going to take, is some youthful, optimistic candidate. And I think obviously that she did a terrific job last night. I was somewhat nervous about it, but I don't know why, because she's always been a great debater. And honestly, I think the former president had a lot of opportunity to pick up independence. I think, he has kind of a ceiling in my view. I don't understand why his ceiling is as high as it is, but he disappointed, I think, his own side of the equation.
And we talked about this a little bit the last time we spoke, but I'm curious to get you to detail a little bit, as a business owner, what it is that is appealing to you about the Harris platform, specifically when it comes to her economic and business policies.
Well, I would get to that. Secondly, I think the thing that doesn't appeal to me about the former president is the lack of values. I think, if your values are 8 on a scale of 1 to 10 and you multiply it times 0, you get 0. So I think the president, having been a bad paid developer and a person who went bankrupt in his business career, I don't know why the business community thinks that the former president would be good for the economy. He wasn't good for it in the last run. And I think this economy under President Biden has done extremely well. It's a booming construction economy. Over 25% of the economy, in my view, is doing extremely well. If you're a construction worker in America, and I think there's been tremendous growth in construction jobs in 45 of the 50 states. And if you're a construction worker right now, you can get a job, and it's a high-paying job. And that creates a trickle-down kind of economy that tax cuts have never actually provided. So I'm optimistic that Kamala is going to do a couple things. I think she'll continue on with this amazing economy, with President Biden's climate change policies, the advanced manufacturing that's happening. I think the CHIP Act for national security. I think she'll continue on with some of the critical components, but I think she'll add her own legacy type things to her agenda as we go through. She's smart, she's effective, and she's going to have a world-class team around her. And she listens to business people.
Well, on that front, it seems like there is, when I talk to business people on both sides of the aisle, there is a lot of criticism of regulation. And I'm not talking about necessarily deal approvals, et cetera. I'm talking about just sort of the day-to-day stuff that affects your business. And I'm sure you, in construction in particular, are acutely aware of this. One of the things that former President Trump has talked about is a so-called efficiency commission, which he suggested Elon Musk could head up. Do you think it would behoove Harris to adopt an idea like that?
Well, listen, I think government has always been inefficient. It's always cluttered, and it's no matter who promises what, I think that's a difficult thing. I also said last time that you and I spoke about regulation that I don't think regulation, as long as it's fair for everybody, there always should be less in most cases. But I don't want them to overly, take away the regulations from the FAA and make air flight less safe. So, I mean, I think getting permits right now, listen, the booming data center business, which is, just hot as a firecracker right now, the constraint is not regulations. The constraint will be the utilities and getting electricity to the sites. We can get permits as fast as we need them. We can get under construction as fast as we can get the engineering done. There's not a single data center in the United States that I'm aware of, other than maybe some of the overly populated areas like Virginia, that are not getting off the ground pretty quickly, in Phoenix, in Washington State, in Oregon, in Ohio. Look at the amazing amount of work happening in Ohio right now from almost every single major technology, hyperscale builder. And I would tell you that if you spoke to them directly, they have been pretty pleased with the entitlement process, the permitting process. So when we talk about these regulations we're going to get rid of, I'm not sure in our industry which ones they're talking about.
Gotcha. And I want to turn to that issue of data centers and the subject in just a second. But there's one more political policy proposal, I should say, that I want to ask you about, and that has to do with this tax on unrealized capital gains that has been talked about for folks with net worth of over $100 million. And this has been sort of divisive within the business community as well. I'm curious what your view on it is, if it even has a.
I'm opposed to it.
Okay, please.
I'm opposed to it. I would be staunchly opposed to it. I think it would be a crazy thing for her to do. I think even, raising taxes at any level that's, out of touch with reality will, hopefully there'll be some, she has to get that through the Senate and through Congress, and there's always going to be even Democratic senators who are going to push back on.
So you think it's unlikely to actually happen?
I think it's unlikely, but I wouldn't just lay down and hope it doesn't happen. I would be an advocate against it.
Gotcha. All right. I want to get to more of what you're doing in your business, and something that's sort of, I guess, related to the political realm is that you've also been working on some of these big construction projects that have happened as a result of the CHIPS Act. In other words, big chip plants that are in the works here in the U.S. There have been some reports about delays, even some maybe cancellations of some of these projects. What can you tell us from your end?
Well, I think two things. I think getting the policy is one thing, getting the actual funding together from DOE and from the government, like always, you go back to President Obama's shovel ready, campaign. It took longer than people thought to actually get shovel ready projects under construction. I would say that from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, that money is really flowing right now. That money is hitting the books. I think some of these other projects have been slowed down a little bit, and some of them are going, at the speed of light. I think overall, it's quite an accomplishment what has been occurring in the United States with the chip building. But these are long-term projects. You don't build a fab plant overnight. And I think, we're going to go through some learning curves. Building a plant in Taiwan or China, talk about no regulation, but also, single point of a decision to get these things accomplished, and a much more efficient trained workforce in building these chip plants. So there's been some learning curves and that sort of thing. But I think overall, over the next 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, it's gonna be a boom of construction between now and then. But it's also going to be an advancement in national security for America to have these chips built in the United States.
And
I
the
would
last,
say Secretary, I would say Secretary Raimondo, who I met with a couple weeks ago, is laser focused and hands-on engaged in getting this funding across the finish line. And I think I saw her on her face on the front of Time magazine recently because she is so personally engaged in the CHIPS Act and getting that funding through. But you know, government funding has always been tough.
yeah. The other thing that's been tough that you and I talked about last time was getting people to build the projects you need, particularly skilled people. And we've been watching, of course, we here at Yahoo Finance have been closely watching the jobs numbers, which have
Yeah.
been slowing down. Has that been good for your business? And have you had an easier time finding people?
No, construction jobs are booming. I mean, if you're a skilled craftsperson right now and you're willing to travel a little bit, you can get a job at an extremely high pay rate. There's a giant amount of work in the Northwest, as an example, where we're paying electricians and pipe fitters between $100 and $200 a day to show up. That's in addition to their already, very fair hourly rates, their fringes and all that sort of thing. When you're paying $100 a day to have people just show up, that is a sign that, that is a topped out labor market. I think the unions are all, scrambling to get bigger apprenticeship programs, and nobody thinks this is a short-term problem. So yeah, there's a little bit of softening in the employment, but I think what I really believe in is that when you have full employment of the construction trades across, the vast majority of states in the United States, that really causes a trickle-down positive effect on the economy. I was with the CEO, Chris, of McDonald's a couple of weeks ago as well, and he was saying, the middle market seems to be doing really well. It's that really lower income market that still is having some pressure.
Right.
And I still think that's part of the COVID recovery, quite frankly. But
Yeah.
construction is booming.
Bob, I'm going to ask you to hold on for just a second. We got to take a quick break.
Okay, great.
We are back here on Opening Bid from Yahoo Finance. I'm Julie Hyman. Speaking of Bob Clark, he's the executive chairman and founder of Clayco, an enormous construction firm. And as promised, Bob, I want to dig into the data center business, which is very big for you guys. It's been a very big focus for us in terms of the AI trade. Now, in terms of Wall Street's view of it and what the stocks have been doing, they've been kind of wavering a little bit. But from your perspective, what is the pace of construction of these projects? And not just, stuff that's under construction now, but planning for future projects. Give us a little bit of color as to what you're seeing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any nervousness on the part of the hyperscale technology companies, the major, what I would say 5 or 6 companies, super high credit, not relying on debt, not relying on the stock market. They're building in advance of a digitalized economy that they know is coming. And so on the inference side, as we spoke about before, these companies are going to, build 6 times what they have in the next 5 years. That all of the companies have, a voracious appetite to continue to build their inference. I'm not a total expert on the trainer, economy, the trainer model data centers that are driving the artificial intelligence. But the people who seem to know are, booming ahead with their projects. I think one thing that's really kind of interesting is that they are somewhat utility constrained. So it's not like a runaway freight train is happening. So I don't think we're going to see a crazy bubble. These are not tiny startup companies that are jumping in and building hyperscale data centers. These are, like, as I said, major credit-worthy companies. And I think that almost the utility constraint kind of gives me some confidence that it's not going to become a runaway freight train. So, we're thinking that our, $3.2 billion worth of work this year in the data center will be 4.6 billion next year, and as much as 6 billion the next year, and that's real backlog. So that gives an indication we're one of the top, 3 or 4 builders in the data center space in the country, and our backlogs are booming. So I,
Yeah,
I
that's a lot of growth.
yeah, I'm pretty optimistic.
Let's talk a little bit more about that utility constraint. Where are most of these projects happening? Where are they being built? And is that being dictated, at least in part, by the power that's and the grid and what's available to them?
That's been the tremendous change in the last couple of years is that, before well, first of all, the major data center, campuses are built close to major populations and the users, right? So they're built in all the major markets. There's a pretty big footprint. The artificial intelligence we talked about, those buildings are not reliant on being close to high population centers. So as they disperse across the United States and they were looking for sites, before it was cheap ground, cheap electricity, easy regulation, and fiber. Today, the constraint is all electric. The prices have gone way up in the land. There's a lot of speculation in that area that worries me a little bit. But if you can get a major site and you can get to power, particularly clean power, you can create real value with your location. And it's, as I said before, it is constrained because the utility companies are seeing tremendous over-the-top demand from what they were projecting just 3 years ago. So and I do think again the clean energy going to places where there's nuclear power. Georgia just brought a new reactor on. Georgia Power did. You see one of the major companies just bought into a site and a nuclear power plant. I think though that the one thing everybody also has to keep under on the top of their mind is that, it's not like data centers are using 15% of the grid and they're going to 25% of the grid. I think a few years ago they were about 4 to 4.5% of the grid, and they're going to go to 6% of the grid. So it is a manageable problem, but it is going to take some time.
Well, something else you said brought up another question, which is we actually recently talked to a company that is buying land to develop to then get data centers there. There's the cost of that. There's the cost of the electricity. There's the cost of building the things. How much have we seen all of this go up? Because again, to bring it back to the companies that we talk about a lot, they're the ones who are making these investments, and it doesn't sound like it's getting less expensive.
Well, we're one of the companies that are doing that. We have enough land across the United States in our industrial business group to build about 32 million square feet of industrial warehouse product. Some of those sites do have enough power to potentially convert to higher utility use. And I think that for our CRG team right now, they are very, very focused on finding large sites. And it used to be if you could find a site and you could get 200 megawatts of electricity, a megawatt is enough for about 750 to 800 houses. So, so before, if you could get 200 megawatts or 300 megawatts, that was meaningful. Today, the hyperscale companies are looking for program campuses that can go to 2 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts. And so that's gonna eliminate a lot of the smaller players, and the
Right.
bigger players will really be able to consolidate the land. I haven't seen a tremendous spike in the land prices as much as I have the investment that it's taking, as you said, to get the substation there, to get a deal with the utility companies, to get them focused on a particular site because they have 20 different people, in the pipeline asking them about this site or that site. You got the Bitcoin people, you have
Yeah.
you have a lot going on out there.
Right.
But you can get a site you can definitely invest more than you could 2 years ago for regular industrial land, but but there's a lot of kind of complicated points.
Bob, in the few minutes that we have left, I want to talk a little bit more about you. If you can just talk to us a little bit about how you started the company and kind of what the growth has been like over time.
Well, I didn't go to college. I only went to college for 5 weeks, but I had a burning desire to become an architect. And when I was young and I dropped out of school, I ended up getting in the equipment business, and I had a partnership interest in that. I learned a little bit about business, but I also learned that I wasn't passionate about it. I was not excited when I woke up in the morning, and so I sold my interest in the equipment company, and I started Clayco when I was 25 with just one other person and not very much capital. And it's been an incredible run because this year we're going to do about $7 billion in revenue. We have about 4,000 employees, and we have about 30,000 skilled craft people on our job sites across the country, all of whom I believe are in my care. And I think the company has done a terrific job of hiring great people, giving those people a reason to stay and to not look for higher fulfillment someplace else. We built a company that really believes in the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated, always, all the time, everywhere. And third, be selective about where you apply your craft if you do the first two things. And find companies where your values are aligned and deliver the goods to the customer. I think we're fanatical client service people. And like Jeff Bezos at Amazon, who has been a tremendous, significant client of ours for many years, he really focused on the customer, and that has gotten us where we are today, is delivering the goods. Typically, our clients' riskiest, most complicated, mission critical projects.
Bob,
and they just tell them to buckle up.
Thank you so much. Really interesting stuff from two guys, 25 years old, to $7 billion in revenue. Not too shabby. It's always fun to talk to you, always to get a pulse on the data center business and also to talk politics. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
You bet. Thanks, Julie. It's always great to talk to you.
Thanks a lot. And thanks everyone for listening and watching Opening Bid. I'm Julie Hyman.
Are you a curious, hungry investor on the hunt for the hottest market commentary? Then join me, Yahoo Finance's executive editor Brian Sozzi, on Opening Bid, the show with unrivaled insights from top money managers and analysts and intimate access to the biggest power brokers in business.
We want to build vehicles that people care about, that change the world.
Since 2009, we've had 28 pullbacks. Every pullback comes with something. It's called bad news.
Plus, we'll bring you the very best perspectives on the most important stocks in the entire market. The goal? To get you thinking differently about your investments.
The return of travel was a big trend. Walmart is unbeatable. Amazon saw a 12% revenue growth, and the year of AI. I mean, NVIDIA on fire.
A lot of people are coming to this game, and especially we've seen it with the meme phenomenon, is that this is a get-rich-quick scheme. It is not. That this is gambling. It is not.
Watch and listen to new episodes of Opening Bid every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday starting at 8 a.m. Your journey to smart investing begins right here.